Hi, thanks for tuning into the blog. This is Billy Epperhart, author of Money Mastery, where we talk about making sense of making money for making a difference. You know, in this vlog, we usually are talking about the subjects of business and investing or real estate. But today, and during this series of vlogs, we've been talking about the importance of a healthy family. And actually the name of what we're talking about, the title is 5 Characteristics of a Healthy Family. And you can see here behind me, we've actually covered 2 of those already. The first characteristic was a healthy family shows unconditional love. And then the next characteristic is a healthy family establishes family traditions, the importance of family traditions. And then today we're going to talk about the third characteristic as we look at that. And the third characteristic is a healthy family makes the commitment of time actually to one another. In fact, I have some interesting statistics here that I brought with me today to share with you on this vlog. It comes from actually the University of Michigan Institute of Social Research. And it says this, that working mothers spend 11 minutes of quality time each day, every weekday with their children, and 30 minutes a day on the weekends on Saturday and Sunday. So we share that with you because it's amazing. Sometimes we don't really realize how little time. Of course, working mothers are busy. We live in a society right now where it's necessary for many mothers to work, and so you can see sometimes how that literally takes away the time that they could be having with their children. And then as we look, I have a couple others here today. Hold on just a second. Let me find them. And it's right here that fathers spend 8 minutes a day of quality time on the weekdays and 11 minutes on the weekend. So fathers actually spend less time than the working mothers do. Think about that. In fact, you know, one of the things that stood out to me during the Columbine tragedy, in case some of you don't know my background there, my background is as a minister. And I actually conducted 4 of the Columbine funerals in 1999. And one of the famous ministers who came through, he wrote Evidence That Demands a Verdict. And he said to me, Billy, he said, what's amazing is that we are beginning to live today in a fatherless society. And then he said something to me that I had never researched myself. And he said over 75% of the people of the males that are in prison never had a father figure in their life. So when we talk about making the commitment of time and we talk about what that means, then it's important that we understand in our society, even more today than ever, is the importance of quality time that mothers and fathers can spend with their children. In fact, I brought this other statistic, is that mothers that do not work outside the home spend only 13 minutes a day of quality time. Now, one of the reasons, and I don't know sometimes where they get all these numbers, you know, how they determine if it's 13 minutes of quality time, but the point is, you can see that there are challenges to actually spending the kind of time that we need to spend with our children because everyone's busy and everyone's distracted. But a healthy family makes the commitment of time. In other words, that's time to one another. And so I've got a couple of areas of time, if you want to take some notes, where you should be available. First of all, there should be time that is given to your marriage. In fact, let me say this to you. That's really important if you do have children, because the children will watch how you relate to one another. I've always said for years that the home is a laboratory of human relationships. And if you want to see your children become healthy adults, then learn how as a husband and wife to relate to one another, to care for one another, to communicate, as we talked about in one of the other vlogs about your eye contact and your body language and what you say, your physical touch, all those things. Learn how to communicate because that gets modeled to your children. And so I say the family is like a human laboratory. In other words, what they see modeled before them is what they become. So if they see the father loving and cherishing the wife, as the scriptures very plainly tells us, then they'll do the same. Or if they see the wife respecting and reverencing the husband, Ephesians chapter 5, then they will model that. And so it's important that we understand that we give time for the marriage time. And then there should be individual child time. And that means we not only should spend time together as a family, those times are hugely important. In fact, one of the things that's been tremendously challenging is for families to sit down in this day and age and have a meal together. We've got cell phones in our back pockets. I've got one right here I just pulled out, and we can be looking and texting and all the things we do, or the television can be on. We need to turn all those things off as a family and have some time together. Well, it works the same way here when we talk about the individual child time. Make sure that you actually have time. If you have 2 children, then if it's a daughter, take one on a date, even if she's 8 or 6 or 18. You spend time with them, and you do the same thing with your son, whether you're the father or the mother. And then there's that family time I just talked about. That's that together time. That's where real bonding can happen as well. We're together as a family. In fact, as you know, right now I'm coming to you during the Christmas season for this. A lot of times families get together, and sometimes siblings that haven't seen each other for quite a few months, or in some cases several years. It's amazing when you kind of come back together, you can kind of get right back in. If you came from a healthy family, you come right back into that bonding time. So family time is important. And then unscheduled time, meaning time that's not scheduled, just happens. I call it serendipitously. It just kind of occurs. That unscheduled time sometimes is the very best time. In fact, just the other day, I actually went to see one of my grandsons play basketball. And when I got there, what I discovered was they weren't actually having a game that day. I thought they were. They were actually practicing. So I stood and watched him practice. But my other 2 grandsons, which are older, they came and they called me Pawpaw. They said, Pawpaw, let's go play. So there was a football field, and it was a beautiful sunny day in Colorado, which is, this time of year, if you get one of those, that's good. We went out on the football field and we spent an hour playing football together. I can't tell you how big of a deal that was. So to them and to me. So unscheduled time sometimes is the best. And then let me say this, plan some fun times. One of my mentors many years ago, in fact, I'm going to talk about 2 of my mentors right here in this portion, but one of my mentors many years ago, he said to me, I took my son, who was actually a little older than I was during the time. I think his son was maybe 5 or 6 years older than I was. And at the time, I was in my mid-20s when he was telling me this story. And he said to me, all the way up until the son's name was Tommy, he said, all the way up until Tommy left home, he said, every Saturday night, we went somewhere the kids wanted to go that was fun. Now, what was unusual to me about that story wasn't that they went somewhere to have fun necessarily. What was unusual is that he was a minister, and he had to actually be up on Sunday morning early, but yet on Saturday afternoon and Saturday night, he took his family out for fun times together. So, in other words, he actually planned it, and he said it was one of the smartest things, one of the most beneficial things he had ever done. And then one of my other mentors said this to me. They said, don't forget to have fun with your family. That's when I had not had children yet, but I was married. And I remember he told me that. He said, and don't let the kids, and he was talking again from a minister perspective. He said this, don't let the kids feel the pressure of the family. In other words, when they're younger, sometimes in emotionally unhealthy homes, everything negative that's going on in the house is talked about, and the kids feel the pressure of that. And so I'm not talking about not being authentic, but I'm talking about, literally, listen, the term husband literally comes originally from the word house band. And house band means that it's like a band that goes around a barrel. It protects the barrel, but it also keeps the barrel together. And the name of the wife for the word wife comes from the word weaver. So the wife weaves the details of the home together with the children, and the house band provides the actual protection. So when you function as a husband and a wife and do that properly, then fun times can be had and everyone can be healthy. So today we're talking about 5 characteristics of a healthy family. And listen, thanks I really appreciate you tuning into the vlogs, and make sure you leave a comment. Let me know you're here. I really appreciate that. If you have a question about some things we've said, make sure you ask that. And listen, keep tuning in. We're going to come back to you right here. We're going to be teaching on at different times on some of these kind of subjects. So we look forward to seeing you on another vlog. God bless you.